I think, like a lot of people, I took one look at Shattered Vanity from Leathürbitch, a Portland, Oregon-based heavy speed metal band, and I decided I probably wasn't going to listen to it. The cover is a little bit, just whatever that is, and it didn't. It just seemed like a new wave of traditional heavy metal throwaway at face value. And then I listened to it. It turns out this is a great record. It's a great heavy metal record in general. It touches upon early speed metal in a substantial way, and the vocalist is fantastic, to the point where really what this is, if you want to chop it up into pieces that you best understand, for me it was this is kind of where early U.S. power metal was. It's that Judas Priest stretching beyond the new wave of traditional heavy metal in their own way and creating kind of pop metal. And this crosses over with this band being quite influenced by early glam rock, and probably when it was more of a hard rock movement away from the 70s, but not quite the cocaine and chicks kind of thing that you get a little bit later. But they covered a Rat song on the first album. The trouble with reviewing this band in general was that their first record was on a high roller, and there's no real digital component of their releases, so that first record is just not available anywhere on like streaming and easy access. And I didn't like the clips of it enough to buy it, so there's kind of a hole in my understanding of what they used to be. But their first EP and all that gives me a good enough sense that there is kind of a early power metal, power speed metal meets kind of a priest influenced heavy metal of the mid 80s touch to everything they do. So uh, let's cut to a clip before I start rambling off in various directions. So in general, what we get here is essentially an 80s US power metal album in many respects, without going quite as far as power thrash. And there is kind of a heavy rock element too. And I think the best band to sort of combine all those things at once is probably like a Law's Rocket or a band like that. I don't think that a comparison to Riot makes total sense, but it is kind of that mindset where it's LA heavy rock becoming heavy metal when heavy metal was briefly popular. So that doesn't mean we've escaped the new wave of traditional heavy metal here in terms of there being a little bit of an enforcer-esque sound to a lot of the movements here. This is still a modern heavy metal album from younger folks. So I don't think that's the most interesting part of it. I think that the highly sexualized and sort of goofy side of the band is it's fun, and it's kind of like very pure heavy metal, very 80s heavy metal, in the sense that they're really pulling from a lot of like what Metal Blade was putting out in the early 80s on purpose. And that's not really what excites me about this album. I think really the references to like Amble Destruction and like early King Diamond is really where this album connected with me, because those are kind of my favorite things and that certain era of heavy metal. And the vocalist really kind of pulls off this kind of the dark, sort of gritty fantasy side of the band pretty well in depicting the general narrative of the album, which you can figure for yourself. It's not very complicated. So really the success of this album is in the guitar work and the vocals and just how that's kind of screams of a certain era of heavy metal. And the production this time around is much sharper. The performances are just kind of better from the vocalist. I think he's really well set and has focused on his cadence and sort of over the top presentation here to where it appears versatile but still moving forward at all times. So a really strong heavy metal record. I think that if you like every side of Judas Priest up through about 1990, you'll understand why this sort of performance is still valuable. And the personality they put into this record is still appreciable, even if the S&M metal thing is not really your gig, and you don't like the references to glam metal. I don't think you'd mistake this for a glam rock record, but I still appreciate that they're digging into the era in an authentic way and creating something that's a lot of fun to listen to. So uh, it is a high recommendation for me. I was kind of teetering on the value of the record over time, because I don't, I definitely anytime I put it on, I find it very effective. I don't know that I really desire to go back to it because I don't love the album art direction, and the sort of aesthetic and the lyricism of the band is just okay. But I like that it's going in a kind of a dark concept realm on this one, and it could have felt more classic even without the aesthetics as they are, even if that's a big part of the personality of the band. So that's just my thing, and so again, it's a high recommendation for me, and I would generally recommend you go check it out. And you can read more about that on the review if you choose. Which way I need to